What's going on, everybody? Fedor here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be talking about this. This is the Voron Trident. It's currently my favorite 3D printer. We're actually not going to be talking about this thing directly, but a machine that borrows quite a lot of this and that you don't have to put it together. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go over to the TwoTrees SK1. Alright, so this is the machine I'm referring to. This is the TwoTrees SK1. And the reason why I'm bringing this thing to attention, or at least in comparison to my Voron Trident, is because of the one neat party trick this machine does. Visually, it looks very similar to most modern Core XY machines, especially in its price range. But the thing that this brings to the table is individual lead screws on the bottom here on the Z-axis. Most other machines, as far as I understand, outside of the Voron Trident, use a belt system that controls the lead screws, whereas here all three of the lead screws here go to individual motors. And the reason why that's important is before a print, this thing can do a Z-tilt, and what that means is the tool head visits 3 points on the bed. Before each print, it can make the surface extremely level and parallel to the axis that the tool head moves onto. So before the printer even does a bed mesh, it can make sure that the print bed itself is as level as it can be. It's similar to you using manual springs on a bed slinger before a print to make sure that it's as parallel as it can be to the tool head. That's all done manually, whereas here with the individual lead screws, it's done completely automatically. So it just gives the machine that little bit of edge that it might need to have the perfect first layer, and as we all know, that's the most important part to starting a 3D print. So what I want to do in this video is get a little bit closer to the machine, show you guys some quirks about it, also go over the cons, because if you can go over the cons and get over them, then well, you're definitely going to like all the pros, and then maybe this machine will be right for you. Why don't we just jump in, let's get this thing over to the table and let's take a closer look. Come on. Alright, so here is the machine. As you can see, it is in action. I just wanted to show you a couple of things as well as the build quality. So we're going a little bit of a handheld video here. So on the bottom here, I have just a bunch of prints that I had from when I was testing this machine. So repeatability, obviously some testing here, as well as some small items. Those are actually 2mm nut holders right there for a Voron build. And they are tiny and came out perfect on this thing for what it's worth. We'll get into the details of everything in the pros and cons like I was saying, but I just wanted to show you guys the print quality, the speed, how it behaves when it prints. Obviously you're not going to exactly hear the volume, but it is somewhat loud. The fans are loud, the movement is loud, the printer is definitely loud, and it's not enclosed, so that doesn't make it any better. The other couple things are like on the screen, various things don't work when the machine is printing, and then other various things don't work when it's not printing. So that's neither a here or there. But as far as the quality of the printer itself, all this is very thick aluminum extrusions. It does look really nice. It looks like there's supposed to be an enclosure, and I did ask and they said there will be one, but there isn't a date at the moment. Everything is just heavy duty and super sturdy on this machine. It is built very, very well. And it looks like the only shortcuts that are taken are kind of like in the plastics. Most of the complaints that I have about that kind of thing is the actual tool head, and we'll go over that in the cons as well. For example, just as a quick one, it is very, very difficult to take out this PTFE tube out of this to do any kind of maintenance, or even if there's a clog or anything like that. And there's no slit in here, so you have to take off this cover, but when you take the cover off, it just covers up the rest of the things that you need to be able to remove that. So there's just a bunch of things where it almost seems like, I don't even know if they're corners cut, but just things weren't thought out as much as I guess I would have thought they should have been. Otherwise though, it prints very, very well. You just have to get it to print very well, if that makes sense. No one is holding your hand with this machine. You're kind of on your own, and that might be the perfect thing for some of you. So it's worth taking a look at for sure. But like I said, as far as the actual components go, it is actually very impressive. And if you guys want, I did a live stream when we unbox this, so you can get a genuine reaction of when I took this thing out and put it together. There should be a link popping up somewhere up there for that video. A quick look on the back of the machine here. We have a very nice safety feature here where the cable going to the bed, even though the bed is not moving, is nicely clamped. It goes into aluminum. This is a nice feature on any machine, let alone on one where the bed doesn't sling. Here you can see the A and B motors, and man, this thing is really humming along right now. Here's a look on the back of the tool head while it goes and whips around, and there you can see the leveling sensor. But yeah, as I was saying, here is the size of the AB motors. They do get warm, but nothing bad. In fact, everything's pretty good. And as you can see, the front over here has two rails, linear rails, but the back hovers without one. And actually, it doesn't seem to impact the machine all that much. But it would have been nice to see another rail here. I know it would be maybe unsightly and kind of tricky, but I think that would have been a nice little bonus. Otherwise, I keep saying this, but I do really like how sturdy and just heavy duty this frame is. I do think the frame is probably the best part of the entire machine, and just how well that it's built and put together. And it is somewhat large for its size. As far as size goes, they do use the bamboo size bed, so it's 256. It is a little bit different in the way that it attaches. As you can see right there, there are pins for taking this bed on and off, but it is the same size, so you can use any bamboo bed, which is actually good because there's already a large aftermarket for those. And there's also a bamboo tool head in here, and by that I mean the hot end clone. And that also means there's a large aftermarket already available. As you notice here on the X-axis, there isn't a extrusion or aluminum bar. There is a flat bar going underneath of the rail. But once again, I don't see much ringing, if at all, on any prints at all. So that doesn't seem to affect it too much. So just an interesting way to do it, and a little bit different than most machines that end up looking like this one. At least the silhouette of this machine is extremely familiar, but as you can tell, as we look in, it is a little bit different. Oh, looks like I totally forgot about the LED bar. I just turned it on, and here is a good preview of how much light output you get. It's actually very, very bright. As you can see, it freaks the camera out. And it does span all the way across. There's a lot of machines where the LED bar is just a tiny little bar with a few LEDs, but this one gives you actually a ton of light. Let me set up the camera and let's jump into the pros and cons because I have a nice list and they'll be easier to go over one at a time that way. All right, let's do it. All right, so how about we check out some cons? None of these are going to be in any particular order, but they're important nonetheless. So let's jump right in. All right, so the tool head cover uses Phillips screws. Why? I don't know, but if you're gonna take that thing off on and off a bunch of times, you're gonna wear through those screws. They're small, they're cumbersome, they're Phillips, they're hard to put on a tool and kind of go in there and kind of use. The tool head itself has a lot of problems in my opinion, and it makes me wonder why. It makes me wonder if they tested it themselves and did some maintenance on the machine a bunch of times before they put it out, because the tool head design, just the covers of the tool head, is probably some of the weakest. Obviously, I'm sure the community is going to come together, design some printable stuff, and we can fix that, but that's again on us to fix. So the first problem is that tool head design is just wacky. The PTFE is very hard to remove. It goes back to what I said earlier in the video. The PTFE tube goes into this tool head cover, and you have to remove the tool head cover to get to the part that releases it. And you can't get to either or, and it's just a bit of a mess. I don't want to dwell on that too much. The tool head cover is definitely a bit of a bummer on this machine. The custom UI is plagued with bugs. As you guys saw in the video, there is a bunch of little things that could so easily be fixed in an update, and there was actually an update on this machine that was somewhat tricky to do, and the update made some things better and some things worse. Essentially, when you're not printing, some of the things in the menus don't work very well, like redoing another print. Very hard to find your files, there's no previews. And then when the print is going like this, most of the menu just doesn't work. They didn't make the menu look differently or act differently. And it's kind of strange, this type of thing, and I have it written below as well, this type of thing could very well easily be fixed if that just ran Klipper screen. If that ran vanilla Klipper screen, this machine would be so much better off. I kind of wish there was a hack to do it. I tried to install some other UI actually on there, but it didn't work at all. So that's kind of a bummer. I think a screen would be a big difference, and I actually don't even use the screen at all. I just use Klipper fluid front end when I use this machine, and that's just a bit of a bummer because the screen itself is actually pretty high quality. It's not cheap plastic. It's a good screen, plagued with really bad UI. This is actually a double-edged sword here. A cloned bed size, 256 by 256, they're pretty much direct copy, as well as a direct copy of the hot end from Bamboo. I say direct, but it's those clones. They do have some differences, but you can take this one off and put in another clone right from AliExpress, and it would work on there just fine. I say it's a double-edged sword because, one, it's totally a bummer to see carbon copies of things on these types of machines, but at the same time, they're copies of extremely popular machines that are everywhere, and there's a very large aftermarket for them. So there is that. There is a reason to like it, and there is a reason not to like it. And also, they, why 256? They could have very easily made this a little bit larger. 285, for example, had been right on the cusp of a 300 by 300 machine. There's definitely some space in there. You see what I mean? It's kind of strange, but at the same time, it would be really nice to buy whatever bed that you like from a Bamboo machine and slap it on here for much less cost. The fans are on when the machine is idle. It's not just that, they're very loud fans. They're good fans, but they're very loud fans, and they're always on. I have a room full of machines, and I tend to not use those machines that are extremely loud when I'm filming or just in here working because, well, they're loud. And this is one of those machines. I'm sure you could hear it now to some degree how loud it is while printing. But even when it's sitting on, by itself and idle, the fans are always on and they're loud. And there shouldn't be a reason for that. This is a Klipper machine with a very capable MKS board. You could probably repin those fans and probably redo the configuration yourself, as always, fixing these things yourself, and make it dead silent and only turn on when you need to, because that's really easy to do in Klipper. But they did not do that, and the fans are always on, even when the machine is not being used. Just a missed opportunity. Another missed opportunity is the fact that there's no camp installed, so there's no meshing, adaptive meshing set up on this machine, and there's no cancel object installed. So if you're printing a bed full of things, which I tested on this machine several times, and there was a little bit of a mistake on something, you can't just cancel that one part. You have to cancel the whole print, or just go ahead and risk it. Whereas if you had just a really simple installation Klipper, you could just cancel that one object and continue printing. So, that's that. And camp would solve a lot of issues that I have with this thing oozing when trying to do a bed mesh. It would just make an adaptive mesh only where it needs to print and go on. Like I said, it's a free, fast, open source installation. But once again, something we could install very easily, but it's not installed on their stock. So just another missed opportunity. The config is generally a bit of a mess. Like, for example, there's no print start configuration. And what that means is you can essentially make a print start and print end macro, and this technically should have been done. But what that would do is that means that no matter which slicer you are in, it would use the same settings to start a print and end the print. And those aren't there, so it uses kind of generic G-code in the beginning of each slicer configuration, which means if you're jumping between slicers, those settings might be different, and that's just a bit annoying. I think simple things like having a start and end configuration or macro in your Klipper setup is just something so simple and gives us a lot more control. Leveling while hot end is hot oozes all over the place. So that's another thing, is in the print start macro, you could have made the hot end heat up to only about 150, 160 degrees, so that when it's doing everything, it's still warm and hot enough to expand. However, it's not going to ooze all over the place, and that's a big problem for this machine. It leaves globs all over the print bed while doing its manual mesh or automatic mesh right before print, and it just doesn't look that good and not very confidence inspiring. And the last thing I had on here, I kind of already mentioned, is no Klipper screen and a bit of a useless UI. So as you can see, there are some hard-hitting cons, and they alone might not be for you, but all of them technically are solvable. It's just that it depends on who you are and if you like getting your hands dirty or not. I do think that the hardware is very good on the machine. It's just plagued by these little things that kind of accumulate you know, to a much larger problem and kind of hassle of using this machine. No one is definitely hand-holding you with this thing. This one is completely on you. All right, with that said, let's flip the page over to pros, because if you guys made it through these cons, then I think you're definitely going to like the pros. So let's get to those. All right, so as far as pros go, we have a super solid build and quality of the actual components in the machine. As far as some of the hardware, if you guys want to jump back into that link that popped up earlier from the live stream, I actually opened this thing up and showed you all the components down below. It uses a full suite of MKS components, which are very good components. It also means that you can buy them and find replacements of them fairly easily online if you need. So it does have a super solid build for sure. Probably one of the most solid builds out of the majority of the printers that I have here. It's amongst the highest rather, and the quality is pretty good. The spool is finally not on the back. The spool holder is on the side. Thank you, TwoTrees, for putting it there. I still can't believe that most printers like this come with the spool in the back. It makes it nearly impossible to load when you have them up on a rack or against a wall, and it's just very, very cumbersome. So huge pro there, even though it's so simple. I just mentioned the MKS components. I do want to reiterate that majority of the components are MKS, which means support will be there from MKS and the community, because they do make a lot of other printer components that are really similar and set up in a similar way. The machine has a great placement for a filament sensor. The filament sensor, the filament runout sensor, is not on the side or the back like most machines like this. It is actually in the tool head, right where the PTFE goes in. So that's probably the best place to put one of those things, at least as we're finding out as time goes on with these Core XY machines. It'll help further down the road with things like multicolor and things like that, but it also means the quickest way for us to know where the filament is over there. And it's not hard, most importantly, it's not hard to put filament into the machine, because what ends up happening when that sensor is further closer to the spool, it makes it harder to load the filament in as you're feeding the filament into the PTFE tube. So I actually really like the placement of that filament sensor. You do get access to fluid right away, as well as root SSH access via MKS. So if you just look up MKS root access, you can put in that password and get right in there. So you can install things like Camp and all sorts of other Klipper add-ons. You can change fluid to mainsail if that's the flavor that you like. You do have access to that, so that is very nice. Now, it isn't a vanilla install. There are some limitations to both fluid and mainsail. However, it is like the majority of these type of machines where they had to tweak a few things so it doesn't just auto-update and break their configuration. And I believe it's because of the MKS components, the screen, the toolhead board, and the board on the bottom that have to play nicely with themselves. That's why it's set up that way. Super fast printing. It does print very fast. It's actually not on the fastest possible speed at the moment. However, it is printing plenty fast for me, and I wouldn't want it to go much faster just for the noise factor, to be quite frank. But yeah, it does print in a really high quality. I have zero complaints about the prints that are coming off of this. In fact, there's going to be a video popping up above where I compared 3 different types of machines. I did a bed slinger, a Core XY machine, and a Delta machine. I printed all the same stuff on it, and I did the same on this machine, and this actually printed not only faster than everything else, but in a higher quality than all 3 of those machines. So that is worth noting. The machine came calibrated out of the box, and what I mean by that is there is a standard input shaper installed on the machine. It is calibrated, so if you do take the machine out and you just want to start printing right away, you can, whereas most machines have to run through, you know, a 10 to 15 minute, 20 minute setup process where you have to go through all these steps, let the machine calibrate itself. It seems like they do that out of the box for you so that you don't have to mess with their terrible UI. However, you do want to run Input Shaper because it will behave differently depending on where this machine sits, if it's on a sturdy table, not, etc., etc. So you do still want to do those things, but it is nice, and unlike other machines, that they did calibrate the machine out of the box for us. All right, that's all I have for the pros. They're actually quite good. And so if you can get through those cons, like I mentioned, the pros are pretty good. All right, let's head to the conclusion. So if all that was a little too long and you didn't read, I have a couple of bullet points and just a sentence to kind of summarize everything in the video so far. So we have high quality, super capable, easy to maintain, over-the-counter hardware, zero help, and bad software. So that kind of summarizes it. So it's great hardware with a lackluster Klipper implementation. So if you guys can get over that and you're good with Klipper, the hardware on the machine is actually really good. I think with just some reconfiguration and setting up some custom macros and installing a few more add-ons, I think this thing can be completely hands-off, as it almost already is. It prints great, it's really fast. You're just gonna be a little bit on your own with this machine. All right, so will this machine be replacing my Trident anytime soon? No, I don't think it will. And to be honest, I do think that TwoTrees needs to make some kind of update to this machine, because a lot of the things that are cons on this machine can be fixed in another version. However, they are kind of a big letdown in my personal opinion, because the machine has a lot going for it, not only on paper, but it does bring a lot of new things to the table in terms of these types of machines. And I do really enjoy seeing new iterations on this style instead of just complete carbon copies. So with that said, what do you guys think about this machine, the SK1? Are you interested in picking something like this up? Are you, you know, one of those type of people that is not afraid to get your hands dirty and kind of fix things yourself on these machines that come already prepackaged like this? Or do you think that the manufacturer needs to make sure that the machines like this are 100% set up and ready to go? Is this a budget option? Is this not a budget option? I want to hear from you so that I can connect back my thoughts and everything that I just said back to you guys. So let me know in the comments below. All right, everybody, as always, down in the description are going to be a bunch of affiliate links. I did not get paid for this review whatsoever. No money was exchanged hands. This was sent to me in exchange for a review video, and I did have it for several months to be able to check it out, and I had plenty of time to do whatever with it and test all kinds of different filaments and settings, as you guys saw in my review. Please check out our Discord for the channel, as well as the Patreon. Obviously, you guys helped me with that tremendously. But more importantly, just tuning into the videos and tuning into the live streams helps the channel out tremendously. So be sure to subscribe and hit that little notification bell, because that seems to be what YouTube really favors. All right, everybody, have a good one. As always, I'll see you all in the comments. Later.